Hey there. Welcome to the Cannadelic Podcast, the inaugural episode of the Cannadelic Podcast. And I am here with Ryan Morales. Ryan Morales for Florida. Ryan Morales is running for Commissioner of Agriculture in the state of Florida. And we are super excited to have him as the first guest on the Cannadelic Podcast because we are very concerned with cannabis and psychedelics in this state, and Mr. Morales is as well. But I would like to welcome Ryan Morales to the show. What's up, Ryan? How are you?
Good, Pete. How's everything?
Great. Little nervous doing our first interview over here on the Cannadelic Podcast. I'm not used to doing interviews and stuff, so I'm glad that we're able to do it because you're really easy to talk to, you know.
Yeah, exactly. This is an easy one to talk to. I try not to scare people, even though I can be scary for some reason. But I know being a tall man can be scary. But no, I'm pretty calm and humble, so I'm good to talk to.
A gentle giant,
basically, a teddy bear.
So I see your background there, very agricultural.
Yep.
And you are running for the Commissioner of Agriculture, which is what Nikki Fried's position right now. Nikki, of course, is running for governor. And, you know, a lot of people don't really understand outside of the name on the gas station, like what exactly the Commissioner of Agriculture is responsible for, or the Department of Agriculture is responsible for all the farming in the state. What exactly is the Department of Agriculture and the Commissioner of Agriculture responsible for?
So the Department of Agriculture has two big responsibilities. The first one is the safety of the public, and the second one is the promotion and of our agricultural community, as well as making sure that it's running correctly. So the Department of Agriculture basically is it's actually if it doesn't involve the police or the fire department, the FDAX is basically involved in it. And so we deal with basically all your wildlife, all your anything to do with the aquaculture, anything to do with the farming, anything to do with the registers, anything to do with weights and things like that in your supermarkets, any of the cash registers at all the different venues that you have across the state. So basically, my main thing is to safeguard you from scammers. Making sure that we continue to push the 300 plus agricultural products that we produce here in the state of Florida, as well as making sure that we keep promoting Florida as the place to come and visit, because tourism is important for us. So my goal is to make sure that we keep the place safe. And sadly enough, I'm also the one that would be in charge of the theme parks and the rides. And I know with the recent occurrence over at Icon Park, it's come to light, and people are realizing that the ag commissioner is also the person responsible for the checks on all those rides and all that. So, it's a really important position that people don't realize what it actually does. So I'm glad that you asked this question, because it's really one of those questions that a lot of people ask me for, because they're like, other than my gun license or, the farms, what do you do? So
that's interesting. I didn't realize that, the Commissioner of Agriculture is responsible for the rides and the safety on those rides. It's not something you would think of as when you think of agriculture, right?
Yeah, it's funny because I didn't even know that until I started looking further into what the position's responsibilities are, and I was like, oh, so I'm the one responsible for checking all the rides and making sure that everything is up to code and safety standards, and I'm also responsible for licensing of basically everything under the sun over here. So a lot of these contractors, all these things, I'm the one responsible for making sure that they're doing everything right. When they're passing these tests, because they're basically doing this to keep people safe, and I want to make sure that we're doing that, and not just, how do I say, letting people skim through and just let them get through just because they're friends or whatever. No, we need to make sure that we're holding people accountable, because people do make mistakes, and it's not to say that they purposefully go out there to do harm to people, but mistakes happen. So we want to make sure that we know what happens. We know how to deal with it, how to remediate. And one of the big things I talk about lately is bioremediation, and mushrooms comes into play when I talk about bioremediation, as well as hemp. So those are two of the big things I talk about when I'm out there, and people kind of look at me weird because they're like, really? I'm like, yeah, those two items are actually really good for that particular reason, for remediation of our soil, remediation of our waters. And
what does that mean, remediation?
Fixing the mess and taking the contaminants that are in our waters and soils that are really affecting the algae blooms and affecting really the soil quality. Just a lot of the things that people don't realize what's going on is these algae blooms and these red algae blooms that are killing our tourism and killing our wildlife, seasonally now all of a sudden, is a problem that's been occurring for basically over 80 years of ag runoff and pollution from big sugar. They're probably one of the guiltiest parties in this whole thing. So we're going to do some things to really focus on cleaning up the mess under my watch. My main goal is basically to restore the Everglades and make sure that we get the seagrass growing back again so our manatees can survive. We're losing manatees way too much now, and they're basically going to go endangered and extinct very soon if we don't do something about it. DeSantis is basically just letting it happen, and I know that they've pushed for more money to fix things, but they don't care. They're not doing anything to fix the problem because they're getting paid by these people to protect them. And passing that law that protects farmers from responsibility of things like this is not cool. So instead of lobbying people to avoid lawsuits, why not just do the right thing? It'll probably cost you less in the long run.
You would think, right? Yeah. So the algae blooms. I've actually gone down to the beach, and I'd heard about them on the news, right? I heard about this stuff on the news, like, oh, there's red algae blooms, and I'm like, red tide, okay, whatever. I'm going to the beach anyway, and I go down to the beach, and I'm walking along, and I'm starting to feel like my throat, and I'm starting to feel like, and it doesn't even dawn on, it doesn't even put two and two together for a while and then I'm looking at the water, and it literally starts to look red, and you can feel like something, like it's just really irritating. Yep. And so this is caused by runoff from agricultural, from growing a lot of sugar, right? And it's whatever they're using.
It's a threefold problem technically.
Okay.
So it some of it has to do with residential runoff, basically the over fertilization of the lawns that we do, all the chemicals that we use, all that goes into our waterways. The other fold is actually cow manure or poop shit. So there's shit that really gets into our water because that's really where a lot of the contamination comes from. And then there's the over glyphosate of the sugarcane fields in order to make it work. So combination of all three of those things right now are really the problem. And we're working on making sure that we come with solutions to these problems, because I get upset when people run for office and they just scream and yell about a problem but don't come with solutions. So I come with solutions, and we're looking at doing things in more natural ways. So for me, making sure that we fight nature with, fight these problems with the most natural way possible is important, because I'm not looking to bring in any invasive species. I'm not looking to, release things that don't make sense into our waterways. Like there's no reason to add more plastics or anything crazy into our waters. All we need is just nature to handle things properly, but we need to speed it up. So we need to help it out. Create some artificial reefs, bring in some wildlife like oysters and mussels and things like that are natural filters for your waterways. We need to also start picking up some of this algae. It can be used for fuel. People don't realize that it's also
the algae itself can be used. You can actually use it, huh?
Yeah, you could actually use it, and I'm seeing. It's crazy because I didn't think that it could be used for anything. I just thought it was just a nasty waste. But if we could find a way to just potentially pick it up and get it out of the water quickly and not let it reproduce any further. That would be ideally what we want to do. But then instead of wasting it, why not try to see if we could use it for fuel or something else? That there's just so many uses of that it could actually have that are potentially not dangerous, for what we're trying to use it for. So there's scientific needs for some of this stuff as well too. So we just kind of, what we need to do is just stop the mess, stop the over phosphating, all these things. So sugar needs to start doing what we need them to do is basically, number one, stop the burn. I need them to switch over to green harvesting. And with that,
What does that mean?
Meaning that they're no longer going to burn the sugar cane before they process it, or
Okay.
before they cut it down, which basically for 8 months out of the year, you got people in that Glade area, Bell Glades, Pahokee, and Mahoti. All those places are just basically getting inundated with like black snow,
Really?
basically for 8 months. And it's disgusting, and it gets into your lungs. It ruins everything. It's just not really good for you. So there is ways of doing the same thing with less damage. Problem is that these guys would rather just burn because it's just a bad habit, hard habit to break type of thing. Like they're so used to doing it that it's just, no, like this is the way we do it. And it's like, no. Brazil and other countries are showing us that we could do green harvesting. And the cool thing about green harvesting is that you could actually use that biomass that they were burning away and convert that into biofuels that they're begging for over here in the cruise line industry and the airline industry now, because a lot of these planes and these ships are now equipped to handle this fuel. And they're looking to make that change, because if they do, they would end up dropping their carbon footprint by 75%. That to me is a major win for everybody, because if we could get the cruise and airline industry down, that's just going to help us with this climate change and the temperature rises. Really just cool it down a bit, because we need to. We're in dire need. Our sea levels are rising. Places like Miami and the shorelines here in Florida are starting to get, they're starting to change.
This is ground zero for climate change. This is where everybody's looking. Miami's is the first place. Because it already floods constantly. Parking garages are flooding.
Yeah, I moved out of there. I lived in Miami from 2007 till 2014. Yeah, we left there because of that, because of climate change. So I could say that I'm technically a result of, I'm a Central Floridian because of climate change, because I'm done with having to swim my car out of Indian River Creek Drive over there. It was just terrible. Like, you'd go through that, I'm like, oh my God, the water's up to my window. I need to drive out of here. It's like,
so am I right that you moved to like the highest point in like Central Florida?
I did. I moved to the Ridge. It's awesome too. It's got some beautiful hills, and it's not flat like the rest of Florida.
It has a lot of hills there, I'll tell you that. We drove there with the RV.
So if anybody really wants to visit Florida and see some amazing parts of Florida, Claremont is one of those places you should definitely have to visit. It was known for the orange groves, but a lot of those have disappeared, sadly, to development now, but mainly because of the citrus greening, which is one of the issues that I have to work on tackling. There's great. Thankfully, there's a lot of science now that's helping us not have to deal with a lot of these harsh chemicals that people like to use before in the past for this. But, there's actually a place over here close by me in Groveland that's using the tenting method, which looks promising, looks great. I'm hoping that they could really do their thing. Just in case if you hear any snoring, I do apologize. I have a big boxer behind me sleeping. But we got so many different things going on with the universities as well too. They're all doing some fantastic research and trying new things to see what will work best for basically dealing with the citrus greening and getting our agricultural community back to normal, because at this point I don't even think Florida is the king of the orange citrus anymore. I believe that's California.
Oh, I've actually bought California oranges in Florida. My mind almost exploded. Like, I was like, wait a minute, what's happening here? This can't be.
And that's a problem that I face here too. Farmers getting upset that that they are doing all these things. kind of lost my train of thought there. But yeah, no, it just sucks because we need to do a lot more to help.
So, this is the Cannadelic podcast, right? And so we're definitely going to get to the, how this pertains to the marijuana industry and how this pertains to the psychedelics as well. But when it comes to the citrus greening and the remediation, you mentioned earlier there's a role for hemp and there's a role for certain types of mushrooms as well. So I wanted to talk about the hemp because I've been in the cannabis industry here in Florida since 2014, and one of the things that we did talk about a lot was some of the remediation properties of hemp, especially when it comes to the soil. So I wanted to, kind of understand a little bit from your perspective of what specifically how can we use these, hemp and mushrooms to actually help with some of these issues that we have with the agriculture here in Florida.
So funny enough, both the hemp and the mushrooms have properties that really just pull the nasties out of the water because they feed on them. So any of that bad stuff that's in the water or in the soil can be pulled up. So the way we're looking at it is really focusing on training mushrooms to focus basically on pulling out all the issues that are causing the algae blooms in the water. By planting them on the shorelines. And with hemp, what we can do is actually not just plant them shoreline wise, but also focus on putting them on barges and setting up like an aquaponic type of setup where the roots are in water. So they're pulling the stuff out of the water just through the roots and all that. So I've seen some awesome stuff. I believe there's a gentleman by the name of Steve with the Hemp for Water program that he's one of the guys I've been keeping an eye on.
Steve Edmonds, no more.
I've been keeping an eye on his project, and we've spoken once before. He's asked me a few questions, and I basically said I trust in what you're doing, and I'd like to continue to help you. I think that what you're doing is going to be beneficial, but it's got to be done at a bigger scale so it makes more of an impact, and that's the biggest thing that I have with a lot of these things that we're bringing to the table. It's like they're great, but if they're not done at such a massive scale, it's not going to completely work. So we need to do it in a way where we get everybody's approval, we get the proper funding, and we make it happen. Because if we don't do this, our Everglades are going to be annihilated and they're no longer going to exist. And if that happens, our whole ecology here in the state of Florida is going to change dramatically. We're going to lose a lot of the wildlife that was native to Florida, and it's just going to be really sad. Because we should be proud of these animals that call Florida home and have been here way longer than human beings probably have. So, we need to make sure that we protect their home. And there's just a lot that I see going wrong that needs to be corrected. People don't care. People are too busy being greedy, and they just need to stop and think about the damage they're doing because it's not good.
So why do you care so much? Like, why is it, like, what made you, passionate enough about this to, I'm going to decide to, do something for public service? Because, for me, like, I look at people that are in public service, like yourself, like people that are run for office. And I'm like, I would never put myself in that position because it's just, you have to deal with so much bullshit. Like, it's just, I could never wade through it all. I could never willingly put myself in that position, but you're willing to do that because you're passionate about something. Why? What drives that?
My kids,
Really?
seeing the future of my children being decimated basically by the Republicans right now with their laws that are just, it's just terrible. These people don't want to respect people. They just care about whatever it is that their base cares about, supposedly, and most of it is just basically control of others. They want to be superior to others, and that's not cool. My children need to have a future. Their environment, the environment here is just getting decimated. So to me, that's important. Our drinking water, only 1% of the world's water is drinking water. We basically sit on one of the largest supplies of that with the Florida aquifer. So I sit right on top of that here in Claremont. So we want to make sure that we protect that because we're having, not only saltwater intrusion problems, but we're also having problems with human runoff, as I'd like to call it, from septic tanks. So if we have any septic tanks that get damaged and from just sitting there and being bad, that can really just cause nasties going into our drinking water that we don't want. So, and then of course we also even have some of the contaminants from like Piney Point and things like that need to be dealt with, because they're trying to dig wells into that land that basically sits on top of the aquifer. So why would you put something that's so radioactive on top of my drinking water? It's stupid, and I take it personal too, because I've seen what horrible contaminated water can do to people. I have a whole community here in Apopka that has basically lost 14 neighbors because of contaminated drinking water. They thought they were doing the right thing by just drinking tap water, and lo and behold, they got cancer and died just a few months after it. So, we need to make sure that we have clean drinking water, that it's not contaminated, and that we don't have any of these problems, because then the only thing we're going to do is kill off our people. The way I see things is that if we want to run this place like a business, we need to figure out how to increase our GDP, not how to lock more people up or how to kill them. So we want people to be happy. We want people to be successful. We want them to be prosperous, but we also want to make sure that they're, alive so they can be productive human beings. So,
alive.
Well, and that's really the biggest responsibility of the ag commissioner, is making sure that people are safe. And, for me, marijuana is safety, is really a way to be safe, because I don't drink. I really don't drink yet. I haven't had a drink in 15 years, just because it doesn't bother me. It doesn't, I lived in and worked in the nightlife industry for so many years that I saw how people reacted. I saw what it did to people, and I never enjoyed it. So for me, cannabis was that. And I wish it was that for a lot of people, because a lot of people shouldn't be drinking. They just don't act normal, and they're not good when they're drunk. And I hate to say that to people, because people want to have fun and enjoy themselves. And I'm like, good, try this. This is going to let you do that as well, without becoming something that you don't want to become. Because what happens when you become that person? You could either get into an accident, or you get yourself, into trouble with somebody that you shouldn't, or you end up involved with a woman that you don't want to be with, or whatever, things like that. So
So that sounds like you're for recreational legalization of marijuana. Is that correct?
Of course I am, because there's no reason why we should be limiting a plant. And I talk about psychedelics as well too, because I believe that people, especially even with LSD, I think people should give that a whirl at least once in a lifetime, to really just explore those boundaries of your mind. I think it makes you a better person. I think it lets you see things a little differently. But people have been so accustomed to the whole taboo about it all. The way I see it is, if it was put on this planet by your so-called deity or God, it's there for a reason. So explore what its uses are, explore what it can do for you. If it's here, it's got a reason for it. So
it's amazing how much propaganda can do, right? It's amazing how much, like, before they demonized psychedelics, I mean, this was the breakthrough new treatment. LSD was like going to change psychiatry, and then all of a sudden it was like, oh no, they use it at Grateful Dead concerts,
but I mean, look,
to fight the war.
Look, even every drug that we talk about, like MDMA, LSD, all that stuff was made by who? By our government. So please explain to me what the deal with that is. So, even cocaine, just legalize the damn thing already, and put us on a list like they do with everything else, because that's really the basic. Like you're basically making criminals out of people who are just going out to enjoy themselves. Now, if you were to actually handle cocaine properly and clean it up, make sure that it's got no fentanyl, make sure that and you make it a business, so that way you could stop. You could stop. How do I say? The drug war did not work. We've lost that war. So let's figure out a way to work with it, embrace it, and figure out how to make money from it, basically as another taxable commodity, and stop focusing on demonizing people that want to use that, because at the end of the day, it's supposed to be a free country, and if it's something that they feel makes them whatever, then that's on them, not on us.
It's an uphill battle there against the pharmaceutical companies that kind of have a lock on the legal kind of legal amphetamines, anything like that.
But it's so funny, because at the end of the day, I'm like, they would be the ones basically in charge of this, wouldn't they? And it's not like people are using it for medicinal purposes. They're using it for enjoyment purposes, but which is what they think that we're doing with cannabis right now. Hence why we have all these limitations. Meanwhile, I'm like, really? No, some of us need more than that.
Right, speaking of limitations, we were just out and getting some flour, and I only had 1/8 left on my recommendation, which means that I'm only allowed to buy 1 more 1/8 until, I don't know, some arbitrary future date where I can once again am able to purchase 2.5 ounces of cannabis from the dispensaries here. And these limits are, as far as I can tell, completely arbitrary. Like, I've researched to try and find where they come up with 2.5 ounces. It seems like some state or some county made it at one point, and then everybody was like, oh, they're doing 2.5 ounces, so let's do 2.5 ounces.
Stupid. I personally find it to be stupid. The only reason why I kind of agree with the limitation is because you don't want people selling stuff out there. I get that, but other than that, I'm like, we need a little bit more. We need a little bit more. Like, hello, like, give it up. Like, stop limiting us.
Well, I don't know if you can make up any kind of profit selling anything from the dispensary on the street. I don't know how much more you can mark it up.
No, and that's the dumb thing about it. Just like I said, let's just legalize the thing, remove these limits. At the end of the day, we want to try to remove the black market out of the scene, right? So with these limitations, you're forcing some people to go back to the black market because they run out of I've seen some folk who have really bad cases of cancer who really just want to smoke, and they go through that 2.5 in about a week and a half. So help these people out. There's no reason to limit them. You're forcing them back to the black market. And I would imagine dispensaries would want you to buy more. So
you would think.
You would think they would be like in favor of like, yeah, we want this guy to make sure we get more. Yeah,
I always have a sneaking suspicion that I don't know if they could keep up with the flower demand if all of a sudden
but then that's the whole thing. Open it up more. Figure out how to get more people to grow. You have so many opportunities to really make it a horizontal market and not a vertical market, but we keep screwing that up. Let others come in and help. There's so many people right now. Like, I talk to these farmers and they want to come in and help and they want to be part of this whole THC boom, but their hands are tied because they can't get the license. And I talked to some of the black farmers too, that they still haven't released that license for one of the black farmers that's supposed to get that THC farming license. Not one. And it's been how many years now?
It's been since 2016 when it passed. It's unbelievable that I can't even. To me, I can't. This is why I can't get into politics, is because the law will say something and then it doesn't happen, and then there's nobody held accountable for it. Like for instance, the flower limits. There's supposed to be a form that your doctor can send in if you need more than 2.5 ounces.
Yep.
And it just says they need to create this form. And no, this form has never been created, nor is there a deadline for this form to be created. And it's like, how can you? There's no accountability. And that's super frustrating.
It is. It's very frustrating. And that's, people need to step up, because what happens is somebody will throw something else at these guys and it'll become a more important matter than this. Somebody needs to make this important. That's basically what it is. But there's nobody up there to make it important, because nobody up there really smokes. Basically that's, I need to show up there with a bunch of smokers and be like, guys, we need to tell these guys we need more. But you got to have people in there that know what's up, people that understand, people that care to understand. I come from that plur background, from the festivals and the nightclubs and all that stuff. To me, I care about people. My friends called me mother for a reason, because even though I was DJing or working and I'd see something happen, I'd make sure that person was fine, because I don't want people to have a bad time. I want people to have a good time. That was my purpose. It was to make sure people were having a good time. So, safety to me was always key. And it was always the most important thing, because when, if something goes wrong, that stops everything for me. Party's done. That's it. Over. We got to make sure this person's okay. And it should be like that across the board with a lot of these people, but they don't care. They just care about what's happening to them and what's going on in their pocket.
Right. And the vertical integration is what you mentioned earlier, is when the one company has to do everything. right? So here in Florida, one company has to grow and process and sell all the cannabis, retail it. They have to do everything themselves, and they can't outsource anything.
Nope, which is dumb.
It's beyond kind of comprehension. I think the thinking behind it, being there at the time, was everything needs to be so tracked, and we need to control everything. So it has to all go through one company. If we had a wholesale market, it would be impossible to track. Not like everything's tracked now.
No.
and
Look,
they do this tracking in other states like nothing.
No, they do. And the funny thing is, like, I would love to join forces with Colorado and California and see exactly how we're all doing this and share, because hello, they want to buy our product too. I'd like to buy their product too.
Right.
It doesn't mean that I want to, cheat on Florida, let's say, but that there's so many different products out there that why not? Let's start doing some of this, bringing some of their stuff over here. Like, there is True Leaf in other states, and I would imagine that they have some decent product in some other states and some of these other companies too. So, if they're running low on flower here because they're not producing enough, but these states have it, because I know they do. They have it in abundance because I hear it from their guys. Bring it over, sell it. Let's work on this, because at the end of the day, it's about demand, right? It's about supply and demand. Getting, if you have the supply in another state, bring it over. Let's get it sold. Let's get it moved. It's about moving product and making money. But for me, really, I want these farmers here to really take advantage and be allowed to sell or grow, so these companies can sell their products. So in order to fix that, really, we got to fix this whole horizontal vertical structure that they have going on right now, so they could at least add different businesses that care, that because some of these mom and pops that would be coming in to help out, like they are in California and Colorado, are really good at what they do, and you can't expect that from one giant company to be that good at that stuff. It's not possible.
And the scaling that immediately has to take place, and it's just so I ran a company called Florida Cannabis Coalition, and our main objective was to help people get into the cannabis industry, which is why vertical integration was like awful. And there were so many people. My life for a few years was telling people what they can't do. No, can't do that, can't do that, can't do that. Just like crushing dreams, it was like, and then coming up with something alternative. Oh, why don't you do this instead? Because so many people were locked out of the market. So many people, because there were only, at the beginning, there were only 5 licenses, and then there were 12, and it was like, and now they're releasing some new licenses, right? So the middle of this year, we're supposed to be seeing some new licenses.
We shall see.
And exactly, we shall see, right? Do you think we're going to see these licenses, this stuff come to fruition?
With DeSantis in charge, he's trying not to let any of it happen. And like I said, he doesn't even want the black farmer to even have any of it. They were supposed to do, I think up to now, it was supposed to be 3 licenses for 3 black farmers. Still have yet to release one of them. So you talk to me about racism and a few other things. Yeah.
Corruption
it's so sad. And it really is. And it's just, look, like I said, for me, it's about GDP. How do we increase GDP? Not about how do I increase one person's money. It's about togetherness, because we all live in this damn place together. It's not just, hey, this guy owns everything and he owns, that's all his. No. He doesn't own the roads. He doesn't own the public schools. He doesn't own libraries. He doesn't own the police department or the fire department either. So, these are the things that need to be taken care of. And, I get upset when I hear people say, oh, well, we don't want to pay taxes. Well, hello, taxes pay for things that you need. And if you don't think you need these things, then you're kind of in the wrong place then. You need your fire department. You need your police department. You might not agree with some of their policies and stuff, but that's what we're here to do, is to help change some of those policies if we don't agree with them, because they technically work for us. So we have a say. You're supposed to vote. that's what your say is. Vote for people who are going to help you change those laws to make sure that these guys are doing what they're supposed to do. But at the end of the day, we need these services. We need public schools. We need our teachers. We need our sanitation department people. All those things. Imagine if you don't pay your taxes and you don't have a sanitation department. My God, the place would stink.
Oh man, it's I've been through that in New York where they had the sanitation strikes and stuff, and oh my God, it's horrible.
Yeah, it's horrible. So I remember that. It was bad. So that's why I say that to people, because I'm like, I don't think you realize what happens if you don't pay your taxes. And it's like that whole what's that movie? Oh my God, the movie with Brad Pitt where oh my God, don't bite the hand that feeds you. Basically, don't mess with the servants. Don't mess with the service workers, type of thing. And that's basically what I always look at these things like, because I come from the service industry, from the hospitality industry. You don't mess with your servers because they're the ones handling your food and your drinks. These are people that work very hard to make sure that you're taken care of. So take care of them. Don't be a jerk. So yeah, that's kind of how I see everything as, like, I'm here to like make sure that, and that's basically what this is. It's I'm here to serve the people of Florida. It's not anything else other than that. So you got to have that serving mentality in order to be able to do the job right. When your mentality is about how do I make money off of this, and the corruption that I see with some of these politicians, especially my opponent, it's really sad that this is what we deal with. And people vote for these guys like that with no problem because, oh, he wears the R on his shoulder. Well, hello, have you thought about how much damage this guy has done and how much damage he will do if you continue to elect him? It's just stupid.
And that's something I was talking to Colleen earlier about, was, it's by dividing everyone into like just two camps. It's like, well, I have to do this, and you can't like have any, well, if I agree with this, I have to agree with all of this, and it's like,
I get myself in trouble for that all the time because I don't agree all the time with what everybody says, or even my side of the party says some stuff. I might even agree with some stuff the other side says, but at the end of the day, I know what they're doing. It's all marketing, and they're all positioning things in particular ways so the Democrats look bad. But at the end of the day, what bad have we done here? We haven't been in control in 25 years, and making sure that we have a Democrat ag commissioner is more important than anything else, because I'm sorry, Putnam, the last time he was in power, did nothing. And every other Republican ag commissioner that's been here has basically done nothing but sit his ass in that chair trying to be governor. And Simpson is basically trying to do the same thing. He's trying to just park himself in this position until he could be the next governor after DeSantis. So I want to make sure that we retire this guy because he's just bad for Florida, man. He just doesn't serve the people of Florida. He's only serving himself, his self-interest, and his big donors. The guy's gotten way more money from casino industry, from Big Sugar, and he is part of Big Ag, so he gets money from Big Ag on top of that because, yeah, so he's known for the eggland farms and stuff like that. So,
oh, really?
Yeah. So, but it's interesting because he's responsible for a lot of the ag runoff from his chicken farm, but he has a company that basically gets paid by the government to clean up his mess. So tell me how that's not a conflict of interest.
Well, that's why I'm not in politics. It's all conflicts of interest, I learned.
It is. A lot of these things are always conflict of interest with these cats. And I'm like, so how does that work? So you're giving yourself contracts to clean up your own mess? I'm like, oh, that's awesome. And then the taxpayers are responsible for that? Like, come on, dude. Like, it's just, and it's so interesting because a lot of these companies start after they get into politics because then they realize there's a need for something and they'll fill that void with one of their own. So it doesn't work. It doesn't work in the most democratic way that I've seen. A lot of these contracts should be out there for the public to know that they're available. So that way that way real experts that know what they're doing come in and do the job and get these jobs. There's so many contracts out there that people are unaware of. They don't realize that these job offers are out there basically from the government that are really good paying jobs. Some of them might not be that good, but these contracts are pretty good to have if you know what you're doing and can do the job. So, I encourage people to really look through the government website, see what's available. That some of these gigs that you could get are really good, and some of these things are very experimental or new gigs that people are offering too. So, they're always looking for scientists or engineers and people that can do stuff like that. So, you know, don't be scared. It bothers me. It's so interesting how the Republican Party has done such a job of like tarnishing what a government employee is. And I remember back in the day, like to be a government employee was like a big deal because you were getting a government job that was going to take care of you and do all these things. But man, these guys have turned it into, oh, it's a bad thing, but then they stay in power to try to keep everybody else out of it while they scheme the system from the inside. It just it's so interesting. It's like, oh my God. So the thief is telling you not to come work here because this place is bad, but meanwhile he's just robbing the place to show you how bad it is. It's that's politics in a nutshell, basically.
Exactly. I couldn't agree more. That was a good analogy.
But and I hate to say that like, yeah, like my job would be to become a job maker, but my job's not to be crony or to do stupid things like that. And my job is to find the best people possible because my goal is to make sure that we take care of the situations we're dealing with. And these situations are dire. They're not about, hey, my boy can do this because he told me he watched a few YouTube videos. And yeah, and that's kind of what it seems like to me with some of these contracts. I'm like, come on, dude, there's no way in hell that you're giving this guy that much money for that when he doesn't even know what he's doing. Yeah. So that's what happens. And meanwhile, people like professors and scientists that know what they're doing are sitting there on the sidelines going, what just happened?
Yeah.
And that needs to stop. So for me, I'm more focusing on let's bring in these scientists and these professors. These people have gone to school for years, stuff that I can't claim I've done because I don't claim I'm the smartest person in the world. I don't. But I make sure I surround myself with people who know what they're doing, so that way they can help me accomplish my goals. So that's what we're working on here, is making sure that we clean up this mess, because there's a big old mess in this state of Florida, and the environment, the scammers, all these people running around with all these I don't think I ever had to worry about card scammers ever in New York or New Jersey when I was up there. It just, it happened once in a blue moon, but I guess everybody had their eyes peeled, so nobody ever had any issues like that, But here in Florida, I guess everybody's asleep or whatever, but I just don't get how it happens so quickly with some of these people, but it happens so much that you see these scammers get away with it. And Florida is really known to be one of the scammiest places on the country. It's Florida, Arizona, and Nevada, I believe, are like the top 3 places for scams. So go figure. We need to stop that. That needs to be halted. And cybersecurity, my background in that is going to be key in helping eliminate a lot of that.
So talk about that. What is your background in cybersecurity?
So I've been developing in the internet since 1995.
On Windows 95?
Yeah. Oh my God. AOL. All that noise that it would make to get in. Yeah. And then basically learning HTML from the ground up. And then I learned all the other programming languages, JavaScript, PHP, everything you could think of. So I've been developing since 95. So I'm basically now 27 years into it. Jeez. Oof. So yeah, I've worked in Wall Street. I've worked, for some major corporations and worked on their websites. Cybersecurity was always main focus. For years, I've always helped people get their sites unhacked, but that wasn't very, how do I say, too painful to deal with all the time, so I had to get away from it. Oh my God, yes, because you would end up getting yourself sometimes infected, so your system would go down, and it's like, you need multiple computers to do this at times. There's so much to do in that, but it's important because you get to see, and one of the things I've been saying is for years is that we've been under cyber warfare for a long time. People just don't realize that we've been under attack. And a lot of these attacks are going to start showing up very soon because he's in the middle of war right now. Yeah. You don't think he's going to start launching some of his little goons over here to do their stuff? Of course they are. But, we deal with a world that is not satisfied with what it has and is too busy trying to get more when there really isn't more to get. It's a matter of just, working with each other and working peacefully to continue to establish human goals, not just greedy country goals or dictator goals or whatever it is. Like, we got some
Sounds like
bigger.
mushrooms talking over there.
I know, right? Sheesh. But no, seriously, we need to start getting some of these folks to, like, think about working together, because we got some bigger issues at hand. I'm sorry, but climate change is a worldwide issue. It is not just a Florida issue or a U.S. issue. It is a worldwide issue. We need to start figuring out food deserts. We need to start figuring out all this climate change movement. Now we got to figure out all these people from Ukraine that have just moved out because their country's been decimated. That's 42 million people that you have just displaced. Where do you think they're going to go? I know the U.S. is only taking 100,000 of them. I'm like, but there's still 42 million of them. Like, and I hate to say that some of those people will go back to try to rebuild, but my gosh, like, that's just terrible. And those people are going to be a cause of a lot of the changes in our world for a long time, because 42 million people to move out of one area and spread them through the rest of the world is a big task, and people don't realize that. So it's sad to see the state of the affairs right now with world power and all that. And then, of course, you get people blaming our current president for something he didn't really even do. We're watching it happen, and we're sitting here like, okay, so what do we do? Because if we get involved, potentially you're going to start a massive war. But we want to help these people because we don't want to see them die. And I'm happy to see that they took out a Russian oil.
I've been saying they should invade Russia since the beginning. I'm like, they should be going right after. And you know what else they should do? Is they should not let the Russian troops leave. They should say, you know what? They should come on TV and say, no Russian troops are allowed to leave.
Nope. We're not going to let you leave at this point.
Now you can't leave.
Scare them.
Now you're not leaving.
Scare them. You have to. You got to use tactics like that. You got to scare them like that. And I mean, for a long time, I was saying that, like, I would have been using audio and things to just demoralize them, because at this point right now, these guys are out there. They're abandoned technically. These troops are just hanging out there for. They're hanging in there with like barely any supplies. They got no food. Come on, my gosh! I would have been just cooking up some bacon and just tempting them that way and just bringing them in that way. Everybody would have quit right away.
Hearts and minds, right?
blow a lot of bacon smoke at them and just be like, come on, I know you want some, you got this. Like, you got to use some old techniques, man. People don't realize, like, you have all these cool weapons and everything, but at the end of the day, some of the simplest things will work to get you to do other things, and food is one of them. Weed's another one too, but
there was that one guy that they said that they were interviewing, like, on the train, and he was like, you just escaped, like, you're a refugee, and he's like, I got weed, everything's good.
Oh, that's awesome. Oh,
man. But you're right, there's a lot going on, like, in the world, that we have these global problems, and we tend to make other problems, like, this stuff is invented. I mean, we watched the documentary on Putin's rise to power, and ironically, the next documentary after that, it's a Frontline on PBS, it's like my favorite show, and they that was the rigged election, the stolen election. And it's so the similarities between the techniques and the conspiracy theories, and I've been arguing conspiracy theories for 15 years, against conspiracy theories for 15 years. And it's been like, I can't believe this stuff is like mainstream now. Like,
well, that's
this is like causing wars.
I bug out because, look, I studied that stuff. So I'm a well-studied marketing person. I studied psychology of marketing. And one of the biggest things is NLP, as well as brainwashing techniques. And with marketing, a lot of that is brainwashing techniques, but these guys took that to another level when they injected the brainwashing techniques into the YouTube videos. And I caught that right off the bat years before. And I saw it and I was like, man, this is going to be trouble. And then when I saw it happening with the QAnon cult, I was like, oh yeah, this is it. These guys are they're releasing the monster, and they're going to, and technically the monster is on a loop right now, because it's not that it's been shut off, but the person that was originally handling the weapon has not has not been adding more fuel to the fire. So all these people right now are stuck in a loop and they don't know what to do. So they're all starting to come up with more conspiracies to try to feed that monster, but it's not working. And they're just falling apart. But it's sad that this is what we have to deal with, the nonsense. And then when you try to explain to them, they're like, hey guys, you do realize that's all part of brainwashing, and they don't get it. And
no, you can't explain it. It's like, that's the thing. It's like the more you explain it, the more they entrench themselves in it, and that's part of the psychology. And you're just like, well, what do I do?
and sadly enough, the only way that I've been able to point it out to some of them, I'm like, please tell me what other president in your lifetime that you were so obsessed with.
Right.
Not one.
My favorite part is if like you read Trump's book, he basically tells you what he does and how he does it and how he lies, and nobody cares.
And they're all like,
get it.
He's the best
Here's
president.
how you can lie too. Like,
he's a smart genius. I'm like, no, he's not. He's a fucking scam artist and a liar. And I'm sorry, but I know he's a resident of Florida, but I can't wait to mess with him. Because he's going to come after me. He's already had me on the target when he endorsed Wilton Simpson. So he endorsed my opponent, and I hope that works against him, because it usually tends to work against anybody that gets endorsed by Trump, right?
He's running around endorsing people now. That's all he's got.
I'm like, let him try to endorse people. They all seem to lose every time he does.
Man, I'm still just in shock that this stuff is mainstream, and that you can, turn on the news and I'm watching conspiracy theories like mainstream. Like, it's just nuts. Like, just was RT, like back in the day, it was like RT, like they find the seed of truth. Oh, you can't trust the government. They lied to you about this. And it's like, you can't trust them about anything. They're lying about everything.
Well, and the sad thing is,
babies.
They use things like 9/11 and all that stuff against a lot of the people. And I hate to say, like, for a long time, I still believe like that was some sort of inside job, because the thermite and all that, the some of this evidence just didn't make any sense. But that's a different story. I don't, I'm not going to go off and be like, oh my God, the whole government and everything like that is crazy. Some of these people are just out of their minds. And I'm like, all right, guys, the Pizzagate thing was just out of stupidity. And it's like, people don't realize, like, they threw everything they possibly could at the wall, and whatever stuck is what they went for. And that's exactly what they did with every single one of these QAnon conspiracy things that they threw out, like this and that and this and that. And it's like, okay, this one stuck. Let's focus on this one, the pedophile thing, or the save the children.
Right.
Or, like, oh my God, like, you guys just hijacked normal things that people actually cared about, and now you just hijacked it and just made it into this whole other world of nonsense.
It's complete lunacy. Like, it's complete, like, see what people will believe. And you should definitely check out this latest Frontline. And basically what they did was they tried to figure out where this whole stolen election thing came from. Like, where did they even come up with this? Like, the votes were wrong or whatever, but it was seeded by Trump early on, and he was talking about how they're going to try and steal the election. And you could see, like, what he's doing is, like, obviously, like, he's going to claim that he didn't lose and stuff. Watch what he's doing. And then they found like one little error in Michigan, and then they like
that was their whole game plan. They knew that they would find one stupid error here and there, but funny enough, all those errors that were coming back were actually on their side.
And they gloss over that part.
But exactly. They're like, oh no, ignore that. Ignore what's going on over there. Come over here to this side of the window where we're showing you this. Like, yeah, but you're talking about somebody's grandma who just happened to die a day after the election or something like that. Like, it was stupid. Like, some of the ones that they were saying, like, oh, but the person died. Yeah, a day after the election. Like, that person's okay, bro. That person voted, and that was their last breath. They're like, fuck this motherfucker. We're gonna vote him out. So yeah, people. Look, man.
But what sucks?
A bizarre world. Bizarro world. That's basically what we're in right now. Bizarro world, because everything is up, everything that's up is down, everything that's left is right, and I don't get it. I mean, Ladapo is a good example of that. Like, everybody's saying he was not. You should have never hired this guy. He's just, everything he says is insane. But he's our what is he? A general surgeon, whatever he is.
Like, oh my goodness. How. And I know that, the sad part is that when we have these two camps, it's like, you can't, like, if you say that, if I say this guy's, how can you, like, listen to this guy? all of a sudden it's like, oh, you're you're a libtard, or something like that, and you're like completely like cast as like, and you're like, well, I can't say this guy's a moron, like, or I can't call. I mean, look, I'm from New York. I've been watching Trump my entire life. My whole life, I've watched this guy. I used to work half a block away from Trump Tower. I used to go there to eat. The Mexican salad there, like, literally is the only true thing he's ever said. So the Mexican salad is awesome at Trump Tower. And I've like watched this like marketing thing. I've studied some of the stuff that the guy does, like as marketing stuff. You know what I mean? And to see it and call it out, and then be called like, well, you're, well, the Democrats, blah blah blah, this, and let's go, Brandon, and like that's the response. Like, it's so hard to be objective, and that's what's really frustrating for me.
Well, no, and the other thing is people don't realize, like, a lot of because of the brainwashing, they have to use very simple words for it to work. So hence why the vocabulary is very simple and small. And the trigger words are very simple and small, because that was the only way to get those messages through the videos, basically. So yeah, I saw the stuff. I knew right away that they were brainwashing everybody. And it's actually written in my book. I actually wrote a book on how to derail the Trump train, and it talks about what they did, and how they did it. Basically, it's what they call cultural subversion, and it's got like 4 phases. Right now we're in one of the last stages. That's basically where we're at, the chaos stage, which is basically that it doesn't care about what you do, who you are, and what you make. Your life is going to get thrown upside down a little bit right now, and that's basically where we're at right now.
Wow, I'm interested to read this book now. I didn't realize they had a book there.
Yeah, it's up on Amazon. I'll give you the link.
Awesome. That's really cool. I have a feeling that it's going to be very validating to read. I have a feeling I'm going to be like, yes.
Well, yeah. Funny enough, I just actually posted a link up on Daily Costs a few days ago that had that particular section of my book that talks about that. And funny enough, I took that portion of the book not from myself. I actually wrote that because I studied Russian, and I knew about one of these Russian KGB agents and his little testimony about what the Russians do. I'm like, I remember seeing this a long time ago. So I found the video, and I actually posted the video link.
Really?
Yeah.
You really should watch that other Frontline too. They actually, I don't know if you've seen them yet, but this was, it's about Putin's rise to power and stuff, which is fascinating to me, because just to see how someone gains that kind of power. But then they actually show, like, in Russia, like, them watching the election and watching Trump win. And they were like shocked, because they did all this stuff to attack Hillary, and they didn't think he was actually going to win. And like, the change, you watch this whole documentary and you see Putin's like, he's always like really serious. And then he's coming to meet Trump, and he's like most excited I've ever seen him.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And it was like, holy shit, like, this is really happening. And so it's like, it's sometimes I feel like I'm in like some sort of simulation, because this can't be real.
Well, and that's the whole thing. People forget that, we were at war with Russia for a long time, and their leader is technically one of these old KGB agents that was not friendly to the U.S. So, their whole thing has always been about this subversion, cultural subversion, because it's just implanting spies into your country for years. And we've done that too. It's not to say that we're any innocent, because we're not. We've done that to other places for years, and we know that. But basically the Russians have done it in such a way where, they're in here, they're doing stuff, and they know our system, they know our ways, and they know exactly what our weaknesses are. So we've put our guard down in that sense. But meanwhile, we supposedly arm up with and have this huge military for what, bro? We're in the middle of a cyber war. That's more important to me than anything else. Focus on making sure that our cyber internet is secure from any of these attacks from these people, because it's going to happen. These guys are going to come after us, especially right after this war. If he loses this war, he's going to be ruthless and relentless and he's going to want to win something. And if he could if he could win the U.S. somehow or another through all this nonsense that he's been creating, then even better. But, we need to just basically keep an eye open for these things. A lot of people are too busy living their lives and not paying attention to really what's going on and how it's going to affect them. I love it when I hear people say, "Oh, I don't do politics. I don't bother with it." I'm like, really? You don't do politics, but your landlord does politics, and so does your boss, and so does everybody else around you. So if you don't want them telling you what to do with your stuff, then make sure you get your vote in and tell them what you want. People don't realize like how important that right is to vote. And I've messed up before. There's been an election or two that I didn't vote.
Mhm.
Because I was frowning upon the system, and I was like, oh, screw this. I don't want to bother with this or whatever. But I've learned that.
Then you moved to Florida where your vote actually counts.
Yeah, it really counts. As long as, oh man, but no, yeah, we got to make sure that we continue to just get people to vote, get people to go out and do what they need to do, because their voice matters. They can't sit there and think that their voice doesn't matter. If you're 18 and you could vote. And I don't care how many jobs you have, how many things you got going on that day. If you're busy that day and you know it, make sure you vote early then. There's voting on weekends on those early voting days. And if you can't do that, there's also mail-in voting, which is being made harder nowadays here, but still possible. You can vote by mail. Got to make sure we get everybody to do that.
Yeah. I mean, and that's we tried. Man, trying to engage people that aren't, think about it this way. If you're apathetic about voting, think about the people that are out there making homemade signs for the people that they are like supporting, and they go out on the street with like signs they made themselves. And you often wonder, what kind of passion do these people have to be out there and doing that? Those are the people that are going to make the decisions. Those are the people that are going to vote and get people elected, because they're so out there about it.
Yeah, they're engaged and they're all about it. And it's sad because some of these people are the same people that I'm like, do you not have a job or a life, or like, what are you doing out here? And there are a bunch of these people out there, somehow or another, they make the ends meet, but they'll stand out there and they'll try to wave more people in for their madness. Don't thread on me people are funny to me, because it's just like, wow. Okay, folk.
Like the 1776 flag is my favorite. It's like, regression. What does this stand for? Like,
my gosh. Yeah, no, it's really sad. It just doesn't make any sense to me. Or the people holding the Confederate flag. Oh, but I just want to be rebellion and show my heritage. Your heritage. Come on. Number one, we know that ain't the right flag. So talk to me again about heritage, because you picking the wrong flag. That was a flag for one submarine.
You can't argue facts. That's what I've learned. Facts don't work with visceral, emotional arguments. People have too much invested in believing it to actually confront facts.
They do, and it's funny because, like, you'll watch some of these reporters with facts hit those people, and it's funny to watch their reaction because they don't even know what to do with themselves. They're like, yeah, bro. Like, what we just told you is a truth bomb, but you need to learn to deal with that.
I remember my aunt became very, very conservative. She used to be very, very like partying, and now she's very, very conservative. And she posted like a meme of somebody, and it was a quote that was completely misattributed. And I was like, they didn't say that. And she goes, yeah, but you could imagine them saying that, right? And I was like, that's the end of the argument. Like, there's nothing. What do you say after that? I'm just gonna write what something I think this person might say.
I know, right? So I think this person said this, and I think this person won the game. I don't know, but yeah. Oh my. So we have a very interesting election coming up this midterm. These guys are definitely doing a lot of their own messaging to try to mess with us. So let's see what happens. But I would imagine Wilton is definitely going to throw some dirt at me, and it's going to be funny to see what he throws at me. Like, what's he going to throw at me? Oh, Ryan talks about drugs. Yeah. Marijuana. It's something we need to talk about, and I'll even talk to you about mushrooms and cocaine and all these other things that I think that we need to rework and refocus on. Stop the war on drugs and focus on actually how to help people instead of hurting them, because you're locking up people for holding one of these substances for life, or in some cases because the wrong place, wrong time, or whatever. Just There's no reason for that, man. These people aren't really going out there to try to harm people. They're, if they're using the drugs, it's on them. That's their thing. You know what I mean? Yeah,
It's a
we
very
don't.
libertarian thing for a Democrat to say.
Well, I mean, you have to think about it like that because it's really more of a health issue. It's not a criminal issue. When somebody gets addicted to something, to me, that's more of a health issue versus a criminal act. Criminal act to me is if you're hurting somebody, robbing somebody, messing with people's properties, things like that. Those are criminal. But, to harm yourself, in other words, as some people might see it, and some other people might see it as they're just medicating themselves. But
right.
Either way or another, it's a self-inflicted thing. We shouldn't be arresting people for self-inflicted stuff. Like, it just doesn't make any sense. At that point, they have to be dealt with on the health portion of things. If they're addicted, let's deal with the addiction, and let's, don't give them more drugs. Don't put them on opioids or anything like that to get them off the addiction, like I've seen some places do. But can we focus on real help? Because real help involves mushrooms and cannabis, really, for a lot of these nasty drugs that are out there, and that's what I'd rather see. This helps people like police and fire department and military. It's not, like, I get mad because people are like, oh, but these are all for drug addicts. No, they're not. It's actually for people who want to actually help and heal themselves. Everything in moderation is good for you, but if you overdo it, of course it's going to be bad. It's like when a good example would be your toothbrush, your toothpaste. It's got, what is it, calcium in it, and if you take way too much of that, you will kill yourself. We all know that.
Right.
You all know to put just a little bit in, you brush your teeth and you're good. But you're not shoving a whole tube of toothpaste down your throat because you know better. Like, these are things that I look at these people like, you should know better. Like, but we need to educate people too on the matter. We can't just have people free willy-nilly going at these things and expecting to survive too. So, I always talk about making sure we educate people on these issues, because drug use, it shouldn't be frowned upon. It should be looked at as a bad thing, because it is. But that's what drug abuse is. When people are using drugs for recreational, usually you're trying not to abuse because you don't want to kill yourself. So if we could teach them how to do it right and not how to kill themselves, that would be important to me, I believe. The Rave Act, that's something that we need to get rid of. And Biden is actually responsible for that one. I'm not a fan of that law. I think that law needs to be removed.
What does that law say?
That law basically outlaws the testing of drugs at concerts and events.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's stupid. And I mean, I would rather what you're doing and be safe about it, because, I've seen so many people die from not doing what they thought they got. Fentanyl is one of those drugs that I don't agree with. That's a deadly drug. That's something terrible. There's no need for that in anywhere. But people are using that to cut into the other drugs so that way they can make more money. And that's where it goes wrong, is where these guys start stepping on stuff. And that's not what we want to do. Like, to me, that's why I continue to fight and say, just legalize the drugs and focus on a way to, make money off of it, number one, in taxes, but regulate it so that way people are not dying, and educate the people who are buying these products so they know how they should be using them and not how to kill themselves. Like I said, education is key to the whole thing. And, other countries like Argentina and Portugal have actually done this, and it works. Hi, buddy. Sorry, the dog got in the screen over here.
What's his name?
Lennox here. Hang on.
Lennox.
Can you?
He's coming into the screen.
He came into the screen. Little Lennox. Good? All right. Go over there.
That's cute.
He woke up, so no more snoring. He was the one snoring the whole time in the background. But yeah, man, the drug on war, we've completely lost that. Congratulations, drugs, on winning the war. And I hate to say it like that, but we've hurt way more people than we've helped with the war on drugs. So can we change the way that whole war on drugs is and just focus on helping people? It's just, I think it's time. It's time that we do the right thing.
And well, you've definitely got my vote, and I think I got your campaign slogan. I think Ryan Morales for Florida. Make sure everyone has a good time. I think that's a winner. I see that on a billboard. I'm like, I'll vote for that guy.
Oh man, that would be hilarious. And all of a sudden, you have a really good ad with it then in Miami or something with like Club 11.
Exactly.
Right there next to the girls. What's up?
All right. So people can find you at ryanforflorida.com.
Yep. Or moralesforflorida.com as
moralesforflorida.com.
They both work. They're both the same.
We'll have all the links up in the description and everything that people can go to, and people can contact you through the website.
Yes, sir. They can volunteer. They can donate, which is very helpful because we need to pay for that qualifying fee very soon. So we definitely need donations. And really, if you want to continue to help make Florida a free place to actually be able to enjoy marijuana and things like that, we got to make sure that we vote for people who believe in it and people who will, make sure that you're safe in doing things like that, because we want to make sure we keep everybody safe and make sure that we continue to include, clean our waters so that way tourism could continue to flourish here in the state of Florida and we could all continue to make some money here. So ideally, that's the biggest thing, right? Happiness, freedom, all that.
Pursuit of.
Yeah. And to me, cannabis is, something that makes me happy and makes many others happy. So, there's no reason to really treat a plant like it's the redheaded stepchild. It's really not good.
It's a plant.
It's
unbelievable. Unbelievable. All right, Mr. Morales, thank you so much for being on the inaugural episode of the Cannadelic Podcast. Can't thank you enough for making it such a comfortable experience and great conversation. I feel like I go on forever, but I actually have to go use the restroom.
You too. No, it's all good, man. I got to start getting ready for other stuff. I got to coach later tonight too.
Right on. That's right. We didn't even get to talk about your family and everything. You're out to coach soccer, right?
Yeah, I got soccer coaching duties tonight, and gotta be a part of the girls' life. Even though I am running for office, I gotta make sure that I dedicate some time for my family and my two girls. So
we gotta do it like maybe a sequel to the part 2.
Yep. And hopefully we can let people know too about the April 15th event that we're working on too. So we'll put a link to that as well together for you.
Right on.
We're doing a private fundraiser event at my farm here in Claremont. And hopefully we'll get some of you folk to come join us for a night of fun. It'll be a 420 event, but I think we might be celebrating Peter's birthday there that night. So we'll keep you posted.
Awesome, man. I can't wait to hear the details. It's very cool. All right. Thanks again. And thanks for watching, listening to the Cannadelic Podcast.